The world went dark, and the first thing I noticed was the smell. It was sweet, like laundry fresh from the dryer. It was the last thing I expected. I thought being kidnapped would smell like dirt or sweat or fear, but it smelled like a sunny afternoon at home. My name is Elara. I am 17, and I was in the trunk of a car. My heart was a wild bird beating against my ribs. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry, but I forced myself to be quiet. My dad taught me that. When you're scared, your brain stops working. You have to make it start again. Look, listen, feel. He always said that, so I did. I was lying on my side. The floor was hard and bumpy. It vibrated, humming like a giant bee. Thump-thump-thump went the tires on the road. We were moving fast, a highway. My hands were tied together in front of me with a plastic strip. It dug into my skin. A rough cloth sack was over my head, and that's where the sweet smell was coming from. It was stuck in the fabric. I thought about my phone. It was still in my jeans pocket, a little rectangle of hope. They didn't take it. That meant they were in a hurry, or they were careless. I hoped for careless. I didn't fight. I didn't move. I made my body go soft and heavy. I made a small, scared sound, a mouse sound. I wanted them to think I was weak. I wanted them to forget about me. The car turned. The smooth highway hum turned into a loud, crunching sound. Gravel. We were on a back road. We drove down a hill. The air got colder. Then the car stopped. My breath caught in my throat. I heard car doors open and close. Footsteps crunched on the gravel. They were coming for me. A key turned. The trunk opened with a click. Cold evening air washed over me. It smelled like pine trees and wet dirt. Rough hands grabbed my arms. They pulled me out. My legs were wobbly and didn't want to work. I let them buckle. I fell to my knees on the cold, stony ground. Get up, a man's voice. It was flat, empty, like he was reading from a boring book. Another man pulled me to my feet. They held my arms tight and walked me forward. I stumbled between them. Twigs snapped under my shoes. We were walking into the woods. I listened hard. I heard birds singing goodnight songs. I heard the wind whispering in the trees. We were somewhere deep, somewhere quiet. We walked for a long time. My shoulders ached from their grip. My face was hot and itchy under the sack. Finally, we stopped. A key jingled. A heavy door creaked open, groaning like it was tired. The smell that rushed out was old and sad. It smelled of dust and closed windows and forgotten things. They pushed me inside. The door slammed shut behind us. The sound was final, like a tomb closing. One of them yanked the sack off my head. I blinked. The light was dim, coming from one dirty window. I was in a cabin, one room, wooden walls with peeling paint, a dusty old couch, a small table with a lantern on it. And two men. They were both big. The one closest to me had a face that didn't match. It was a nice face, almost kind, with lines around his eyes like he smiled a lot. But his eyes were wrong. They were cold and still, like stones at the bottom of a river. He was the one with the empty voice. The other man was younger. His face was tight and nervous. He couldn't look at me. He kept chewing on his lip. He was scared, too. The first man, the one with the stone eyes, looked at me. He didn't smile. "You're going to stay here for a while," he said. His voice was still that same flat tone. "Be good and this will be easy. Cause trouble and it will be hard." He pointed to a door in the back. "There's a bucket in there. That's your bathroom. You get food and water when we bring it. Don't try to escape. The nearest town is 20 miles away. There's nothing out there but woods and wolves." The younger man flinched when he said, "Wolves." He was definitely scared. Stone Eyes saw me looking around. "My name is Kale," he said. It wasn't a friendly introduction. It was a label, a name for me to fear. He pointed to the nervous man. "That's Leo. You don't need to know anything else." Kale walked to the table and picked up the lantern. He lit it with a match. The flame jumped, making scary shadows dance on the walls. "We'll be back," he said. Then he and Leo walked out, the door closed. A key turned in the lock, click. I was alone. The silence was huge. It pressed in on me from all sides. I stood in the middle of that dusty room, listening to their footsteps fade away outside. Then I let myself fall apart. I sank to my knees on the rough wooden floor. The tears came then, hot and fast and silent. My body shook. I cried for my mom. I cried for my dad. I cried for my own bed, for the smell of my kitchen, for the stupid argument I'd had with my friend just that morning. I wanted it all back. I wanted it so badly my chest hurt. I cried until my throat was raw, and my eyes were empty. But then my dad's voice was in my head again. Crying is okay, kid. It lets the pressure out. But then you get up. You get up and you fight. I wiped my face on my shoulder. My hands were still tied. I looked around the cabin, really looked this time. It was a prison, but it was also a place. A place had things. Things could be used. There was the old couch, its fabric torn. There was the wooden table, the lantern, the bucket in the corner for water, the locked door, the one window covered in grime. My eyes landed on the fireplace. It was old and made of stone, and next to it, sitting in a rusty metal stand, was a poker, a long iron rod with a sharp hook on the end. An idea, small and fierce, sparked in my mind. I shuffled on my knees over to the fireplace. I turned around and backed up to the poker. I felt for the hooked end with my bound hands. It was hard. My fingers fumbled, clumsy and scared. But after a few tries, I hooked the plastic zip tie onto the sharp metal. I started to saw my wrists back and forth, back and forth. It was slow. My arms burned. The plastic dug deeper into my skin, but I didn't stop. Back and forth, back and forth. I thought of my parents. I thought of my home. I saw my dad's face telling me to be brave. With a final, hard pull, the plastic snapped. My hands were free. I brought them in front of me, rubbing my sore wrists. Red marks circled them like bracelets, but I was free. It was a tiny victory, but it was mine. I wasn't completely helpless. I stood up. My legs were still shaky, but I could stand. I went to the window first. I wiped a circle in the thick dirt. Outside, I saw only trees, endless dark pine trees. Cale was right. We were in the middle of nowhere. The door was solid wood, with a heavy old lock. I couldn't break that down. I listened. The only sounds were the wind and the creaking of the old cabin. They were really gone. I was alone. But I had my phone. My heart leaped. I reached into my pocket. My fingers closed around the cool. Familiar shape. I pulled it out. A tiny screen of light in the dark cabin. Please have a signal. Please, please, please. I looked at the top corner of the screen. No service. Nothing. Just a lonely-looking cross next to the signal bars. The hope drained out of me like water. Of course, we were 20 miles from anywhere. There would be no signal. But I didn't put it away. I held on to it. It was a piece of my old life. It had pictures of my friends, my dog, my family. It had music. It was a weapon against the silence. I needed to hide it. If they came back and found it, they would take it. I needed to keep it safe. I looked around the cabin for a hiding spot. The couch, under a loose floorboard. Then I saw the fireplace. Up inside the chimney, it was dark and sooty. I reached up as high as I could. My fingers found a small, narrow ledge. It was perfect. I wrapped my phone in a bit of cleanish-looking rag I found and tucked it up onto the ledge. Safe. Now what? I was still trapped, but I had my hands free. And I had time. I could learn, I could plan. I searched the cabin. I was careful, putting everything back exactly how I found it. I couldn't let them know I was anything but a scared, obedient girl. The cupboard had a few cans of beans and soup, a bottle of water, a single blanket on the couch, thin and scratchy. Under the couch, my fingers found something else, something metal. I pulled it out. It was a nail, a long, rusty nail. It wasn't much, but it was sharp. I held it in my hand. It was a tool. It was a weapon. It was a second spark of hope. I hid the nail in a different spot, a small crack in the wall behind the table. The sun had fully set now. The cabin was dark except for the soft glow of the lantern. The shadows felt alive. Every creak of the wood made me jump. I was so scared, the kind of scared that sits in your stomach like a cold rock. But under the fear, something else was growing. A tiny, stubborn feeling. Anger. I was angry at them, for taking me, for scaring me, for putting me in this dirty place. I wasn't just a victim. I was a girl with a rusty nail and free hands. I was a girl who remembered her father's lessons. I heard a sound outside, a car engine getting closer. They were back. My breath hitched. I quickly looked around. Was everything where it should be? I ran to the fireplace and sat down against the wall, pulling my knees to my chest. I put my hands behind my back, like they were still tied. I made my face go blank and scared. The key turned in the lock. The door opened. Cale walked in first. He looked at me sitting on the floor. His stone eyes scanned the room. Did he notice anything? Did I leave a trace? Leo followed him, carrying a paper bag. He put it on the table. Food, he mumbled, still not looking at me. Cale walked over to me. He stood above me, a giant. He reached down and roughly grabbed my wrists. He turned them over, looking for the zip ties. He saw the red marks. He must have thought they were still from the original binding. He grunted and let my hands go. He believed it. He thought I was still tied up. Get up and eat, he said, turning away. I stood up slowly, acting weak. I went to the table. Leo had taken out a bottle of water and a wrapped sandwich. I was so hungry, but I ate slowly. I watched them. Cale sat on the couch, cleaning his fingernails with a knife. A big, sharp knife. Leo stood by the door, looking uncomfortable. How long? Leo asked quietly, so I could barely hear. As long as it takes, Cale said without looking up. The money clears, then we're done. A kidnapping for money, a ransom. That meant my parents knew. They were trying to get me back. The thought was like a warm blanket in the cold room. They were coming for me. But I couldn't just wait. What if something went wrong? I had to help myself. I finished the sandwich and drank the water. Cale stood up, back on the floor. I went and sat against the wall again. Leo walked over. He had a new zip tie in his hand. He looked sorry. I have to, he whispered, so low only I could hear it. He was going to tie my hands again. If he did, all my work would be for nothing. I had to stop him. I had to be brave. I looked up at him, my eyes wide with fake tears. I let my lip tremble. Please, I whispered back, my voice shaking. It hurts so much. My hands are going numb. Please, just for tonight. I'm so scared. I won't do anything, I promise. I sounded so pathetic, so broken. Leo hesitated. He looked at my wrists, at the red marks. He glanced back at Cale, who was putting his knife away. Cale, Leo said. Her hands are pretty raw. Maybe we don't need to tonight. She doesn't look like she's going anywhere. Cale looked over. He seemed annoyed. Fine, whatever, just make sure the door is locked. Leo nodded quickly and put the zip tie back in his pocket. He gave me a tiny, almost invisible look. Was it pity? Maybe. It didn't matter. I had won. My hands would stay free. They left soon after, locking the door behind them. The car engine started and faded away into the night. I was alone again, but I was different. I had fooled them. I had kept my hands free. I had a weapon. I had a phone. I had hope. I curled up on the dusty couch with the thin blanket. The lantern flickered. Outside, the wind howled. It sounded lonely, but it was just the wind. There were no wolves. Cale had been trying to scare me. I wasn't scared of the wind anymore. I was scared of the men, but I was learning about them. Cale was the strong, cold one. Leo was the weak, nervous one. He felt bad. That might be useful. I closed my eyes. I didn't sleep much. I listened to the noises of the old cabin. I made a map of the sounds in my head. And I planned. Tomorrow was a new day. I would learn more. I would find a way out. I was Elara Vance. I was 17, and I was going to escape.